Now I want you to consider one thing. You all learned to walk, didn't you? I think you're able to walk now. How long did it take you to learn to walk? A year? 1.5 years? 2 years? From the first steps, from the first crawling up till the standing up, and until the walking, until the complete control of the movement of the body. How long did it take you? Long time. Year or 2 years. And how much dukkha was in there? How often did you hit your head? How often did you cry? How often did you break out in tears? Very often. Did you give up? No. If you would have given up, you wouldn't be able to walk. That's why you didn't give up. It's the same thing with speaking. How long did you train your tongue and your vowels to speak? A long time. A year, 1.5 years. To be able to formulate, to able to bring out sounds that are within your environment understood. Did you give up? No, of course not. Because you wanted to speak, you wanted to communicate, you wanted to see the world, that's why you wanted to walk. Otherwise the world would have been very concise, very confined. Would have been very small. Just laying on the back or on the front, you would just see the room. Now while you can walk and do this and do that, you can see the whole world. And it's the same thing holds true for practice. So if we don't give up, if we would have the same attitude, just 90% of the attitude of learning to walk or learning to speak, if we would apply this kind of attitude within our practice, within no time, we would be able to practice. We would be able to set the mind still and calm. Or able to lead it to investigation. But here, after half an hour, or an hour, or maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, we give up. It's too difficult. You haven't given up walking because you hurt yourself, or you cried, or you did this, or you hit your head, or you fell over. So if you want to learn, if you want to experience another world, if you want to get rid of your dukkha, well, you have to go through these steps. It's a preliminary way. You just have to learn. You have to learn the preliminary way to set your mind still in samadhi, to get it calm, to get it focused on one point. And you have to learn the preliminary way of how to investigate this in line with the truth. Bringing the mind down to concentration, bringing the mind down to one-pointedness is an easier job. So it won't take that much time. But learning how to investigate properly, this will take time. Because it's opposite of the way we are used in the West. We are not, when we investigate for wisdom, we are not investigating for knowledge. We don't want to know, we want to investigate for insight. Seeing inside. Seeing into the true nature of things. That is called wisdom. Wisdom, the only source of wisdom, is within our hearts. And that's where we have to look them up. Wisdom doesn't arise in the mind. Knowledge arises in the mind. Knowledge has a problem. We can either believe it or we can doubt it. So whatever we can believe or whatever we can doubt is knowing not in line with the truth. Because once we get down to our heart, once we investigate in line with the truth, and insight arises or wisdom arises, there's nothing to doubt. An example, a very simple example. the world population is sitting around a fire. Lots of groups are discussing if the fire is hot, warm or cold, and all shades of warm and coldness. And one person comes in and listens to the groups and listens to the discussion, and then he said, I want to know it for myself, grabs in the fire, and then he knows. That is wisdom. He knows for himself. He doesn't need to convince the other people if the fire is hot or cold. He sees, it's foolish just to discuss about it or to learn about it. He grabs in the fire and he knows. And that is wisdom. He doesn't have to ask anybody if that wisdom that arose within his heart is true or not. He knows it's true. He has experienced it for himself. So that is the difference between wisdom and knowledge. We can have a lot of knowledge. The more knowledge we have, we will see on the path of investigation, the more it weighs us down. It's like climbing a mountain. If we have a lot of stones in our backpack, it weighs us down. It makes the journey more tough, more harder, more discouraging. If we have little weight, if we have little knowledge about this or that, but have an open mind or an open heart and just climb up the mountain, it's very easy. But our knowledge about this, about the world, and even our knowledge about the practice weighs us down. We have this idea about the practice, or we have that idea about the practice. And that's what makes doubt. Should I go this way or should I go that way? Should I follow the Tibetan tradition or should I follow the Zen tradition or should I follow the Theravadan tradition? And within the Theravadan tradition, should I follow the Mahayana or should I follow the, not Mahayana, Mahanikai or the Dhamma Yut? And within the Dhamma Yut, should I follow the forest tradition or this or that? The more we know, the more we are in doubt. The Lord Buddha himself said that the Dhamma that he teaches can be a snake, or can be compared to a snake. If you grab the snake at the head, it won't bite. But if you grab the snake at the tail, it will turn around and bite. What does that mean? It means when we study the Dhamma, and we study it so well that we all know it within our minds, what the Lord Buddha teaches, what he means and things, but we have never actually experienced what he was talking about. That is when the snake turns around and bites us. Because it fools us into thinking that we don't have to do the practice. So very intelligent people are actually in that respect very stupid. They are stupid in the ways of Dhamma. They are very intelligent in the ways of studies. Tanatan always makes a joke when doctors are coming, so people who are studied to the highest, and he calls him doc. Nothing other like a dog. They are so stupid in the ways of the world. And even we know that the people who studied so much lost all the perspective of reality. We call them they're living in their ivory tower. They have lost all relation to the world, what is going on around, because they are so much up in their studies. The forest tradition or the forest university is the way to get back to the heart. Is the way to get back to the true experience. When we talk about the body, normally when we talk about the body, we talk about the looks of the body, or maybe we talk about the outer parts of the body. But actually, we do not know what it references. We do not know what does it really mean? Skin, what does it really mean? It's a word, it's a symbol. It points to something. But what it points to is an actual experience of the skin. Or the foot is an actual experience of the foot. Or the internal organs, the heart, the physical heart, is an actual experience. Or the lungs, or this, or that. But we use all these symbols, manipulate these symbols, create new symbols. So actually, we are not living in the real world. Just like a doctor who's living in his ivory tower, we are actually not living in our real world. Because we don't know, what does this mean? We speak of love, we speak of hate, we speak of greed, we speak of this and we speak of that, but we have lost the connection to what it really means. What does love mean? What does greed mean? What does sadness mean? What does it mean? It's a word for us. What does it point down to? What is the actual difference between sadness, between lust, and between hate? Where's the difference? What is it? If we don't get down to what the symbols that we use so, or that we are so skillful in using it, and manipulating, and making all the views, all our world is made out of these symbols. When I describe myself, I'm made out of this symbol. The other person, has a different meaning for these symbols that we are using, and that's why we get in conflict. That's why misunderstanding can happen. Because of the different interpretation of the same symbol. That's why we wage war on each other. Because of our misunderstanding. Because of not being able to go back to what it actually means. What is the body? What does it mean? When you go to a butcher, you see all the parts of an animal body. All what you see is the flesh. All what you see is your steak in the pan. That's all what you see. You don't see the flesh. You don't see the bones. You don't see it. You see only what you want to eat. A nice, soft, juicy steak. Now cut up your own body, You can make a lot of steaks out of it. If you want to see it as this, then you can see it. So what is the body? When we look at an animal body with 4 legs, or a mammal, I think it's called a mammal. It's just made up as we are. It has legs, it has hands, most of them have 4 legs, but we have hands. But apes have 4 hands, they don't have any legs. Doesn't matter. They have 2 up in the front and they have 2 up in the back. So it's the same thing. They have bones, they have a skin, they have hair, they have teeth, they have a nose, they have eyes, they have lungs, they have a heart, and they have a brain. So it's the same thing. In the respect or in the views of the body, it's the same thing. So next time we see a dead animal, we better reflect. That's how I look. It's the same way. It's the same thing. It has flesh, it has muscles, it has a skin, it has hair, it has a heart, it has a liver, everything. It has a stomach. It's the same, just the same thing. But whenever we see an animal, we see a piece of flesh or piece of meat that we can eat. Why don't we regard the human people the same way? When I see a human person, I see just a piece of meat that I want to eat. It would be the same thing. So, Looking from this respect, what gives us the right to kill an animal being? It has the same value as a human being. It's a being. But because we are brought up as Christians, animals are animals and human beings are human beings. That's why we can look down on animals and can slaughter them and use them for our own purpose. But according to Buddhism, this is wrong view. Animals are beings. From the smallest kind of animal, from mosquito, up to the highest kind, to dogs and elephants and horses that are high up in the hierarchy. They're all animals. They're all beings. They are beings, and some of the great Ajahns here in Thailand tell us, or tell their lay people, be wary, some of the animals who are around here have a better store of merit, have a better karma than you have. When you die, you might go down to the hell realms. When they come back to the human realms, they might be extremely rich people, extremely skillful people, extremely patient people, have all the virtues. So don't look down on animals. They are beings like we are. The heavenly beings don't look down on human beings. But they like people who have virtue, and they dislike people who don't have virtue. That's why they normally separate themselves. And living the lowest realm lives far in the forest where there are hardly any contacts to human beings. But if they see a virtuous human being, then that's where they go. So if they see Thanachan or some of the other big Ajahns in Thailand, they go and visit them. Pay respects to these human beings. Because they have greater virtue than themselves. And all what counts in all realms is virtue. And now think about the human realm. Everything else than virtue counts. Isn't that strange? Isn't that something we should reflect upon? Virtue is something that hinders in our self-progress. So we better get rid of the virtue. We better get rid of generosity. We better get rid of respect. And we better get rid of gratitude. Because that hinders our progress. That's what human beings normally do. Or, if they don't think it in this way, or they don't consciously think it, that's how they act. The only realm, in all the 36 realms of existence, the human realm does not know or does not have a value for virtue, for morality. They put their foot on, they step on it, as if it's something not good. The animal realm, no. Even the demon realm, no. The ghost realm, no virtue. If they see a virtuous person, they normally fly to this person. Or they try to get in contact with this person, to share the merit of this virtuous action with them, so that they are relieved from dukkha. Because whatever is lower than us has more dukkha than we have. Now when we come back to investigation, then we come back of setting our goal to understand what the things that we assume and use what the symbols mean. What are they really pointing When I say I fall in love, what does it mean? In terms of Vedana, in terms of Sanya, in terms of Sankhara. It's a mixture of all these 3 or 4 different ingredients. And because of this mixture, we confuse it to be a symbol for itself. It's like we say a carrot soup, it's a carrot soup and there's nothing else. That it's made out of water, salt and parsley and carrots, we forget. When we use a different mixture of the carrots, parsley and water and salt, then it becomes a different soup, doesn't it? So when we investigate with what is really is. What really is are the 6 sense fields: seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, thinking. What really is Rupa, and that Rupa includes the 6 sense fields. So it's a body. Then it's Vedana, it's feeling. Bodily feeling, mental feeling. It's Sanya, it's memory, recognition, it's labeling, and it's associations. That's Sanya. Sankhara is thinking. It's thinking, ideas, short thoughts. And Vijnana is just consciousness. Consciousness that something has arrived at the sense door. Not yet knowing at what sense door and what it is. In order to recognize a chicken crying, a lot of processes have to take place. First of all, we have to go to that sense doors, then we know it's the sense doors of the ears, then we hear the cry, and then we have to match it again, our memory, to find the pattern, and then we finally say it's a chicken. So a lot of things are going on. So we have to speed up our mindfulness to catch it. Catch it working in this way. If you see, when I say this, if you see the example of a train running by at a speed of 400 kilometers, you only see a blur of color. That's all. But, and that's what happens to us every moment. You see a blur of color and think, this is blue, or this is green, or this is red, or this is this, or this is that, or this is that. So when we speed up, when we run, when we start running with the train, and we are at the same speed of the train, we see the different wagons, we see what's happening inside these different wagons. We know who is the driver of the engine, what kind of engine is it. We see everything in complete detail, and we understand. But as long as the train is running by at this high speed and our mindfulness is not up to the point, we will not see and we will not understand. Understanding is something that happens in the face, in the heart. This, please remember. It's not in the mind. It's not the conclusions that we draw, that we thought we saw, or we thought we understood. As long as we think we understood, it's not really understanding. It's not really insight. It's not really wisdom. The moment we know, we just know. As I mentioned in the example before with the fire. We just know. And that is the way how we experience Magga, Phala and Nibbana. Magga is the path, Phala is the fruit of the path, and Nibbana is Nibbana. We know. And the whole world can come to us and say, no, you are not a stream enterer. We just know. And we don't care. What does the world know about this? Doesn't know anything. We have had the experience. And that is all what is called. But of course, some people or quite a few teachers tell their pupils, they are stream enters or anagamis, or they are sotapanna, anagamis, or what, sakadagami, or they are. And of course the students, because they believe in their teacher, believe it. But that's a belief. And then they go, their teacher dies, and they go to another teacher, and he says, oh, you're not. Then you're in big trouble. Then you're really in big trouble. I've seen people like that, who got assertion, and I had myself the experience, because one of my teachers told me, I'm this or I'm that. You're really in trouble. Because you believe it and you want to believe it. You really want to believe it. Especially if you're on the way of practice, if you have nothing else in practice, you really want to believe it. And there's nothing, no reason that gets you out of this. Except if you look down, if you go back the way of practice and look at your own heart, what still is happening. And then you compare it with what the Lord Buddha teaches, Sotapanna has or has not. Or Sakadagami has or has not. I can tell, I for myself, sometimes believed, I was an arahant. And I believed it, and I wanted to believe it. Until 6 months later, I had an experience where I faced some dukkha. And then I said, see? There's dukkha. You can't be an arahant. But it was very, very difficult to retract back from that belief. So I don't want you to take up wrong beliefs. Whatever you know, you know. And there's nothing, and there's no person in the world who can say, you are that, or you are that, or you are that. Because you know for yourself. I have experienced this, I have experienced that. Of course, I have to say the first two markas, that means the first two stages of holiness, and that is the stage of Sotapanna and the stage of Sakadagami, is very, very difficult to discriminate. If there is not a person, if there is not a teacher who can see your chitta, it's very difficult to say you're this or you're that. That is not true for the Anagami. An Anagami has gone beyond greed and hate. And he knows he has gone beyond greed and hate, and he knows he will never be reborn. He just knows it within his heart. That is the first stage where you're really sure. Before you know, you have a very deep experience, and then even if a person comes to Tanachan, and I've seen it, and he talks about this experience, then Tanachan says it might have been this experience of Sotapanna. It might. But it doesn't matter. We had this experience, and that experience will change our life. Sotapanna is the first stage of liberation. It's the first time, and this knowledge, and if we are careful, we know it, if this knowledge arises, that we are not anymore born in the hell. We are not anymore born lower than a human being. We know that. We have it somehow in our hearts. Isn't it something that we all wish for? Nobody of us wants to go down to hell. Nobody of us wants to become a hungry ghost. Nobody of us wants to become a demon or an animal. So, if you have nothing else to do with in your life, at least take this goal in mind. But it's not easy. You have to do quite a bit of work. You have to cut through the first 3 fetters. And if these fetters wouldn't be so strong, a lot of people would easily get to that stage. The fetter of doubt. For the Westerners, it's a very, very strong fetter. We don't believe in ghosts. We don't see them. We don't believe in angels. We don't see them. We don't believe in hell. We don't believe in heaven. We don't believe in karma. That all our actions, be it a thought, be it a word, or be it a bodily action, has a result. Karma, the law of cause and effect. Jesus taught us, but the people forget it. What you sow, that you will reap. He taught us so clearly. That's why we saw all this hate, because we want to reap hate. He taught us, to sow love. To love your enemy. Thou shalt love your enemy. And what do? We not only hate our enemies, but we hate our friends. If they say something that does not confine to our own self. And we punch them for what they say. And the example, where the soldier took off the ear. So he took the ear and put it back. That's how he loves his enemies. But what we do, we are brought up. We forget it. We forget the main things of our Christian upbringing. So, we don't believe in karma. Because we don't want to believe. We just want to do what we want to do. This is nice, this is exciting, that's all our life. And especially in the West, this is. The more excitement, the better. And we don't think about the result. We just go for it. And even our friends said, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Okay, that's what you have to see. Have you been to these places? Or have you been to that place? That's where we have to go. We just want, and we just want to do that. If we face karma, then we are sorry and sad, and we think, this God has brought all this karma on us. How unfair. Relieve me of this unfair karma. Or relieve me of this sadness. Or relieve me of that bad karma. But we never, whenever we win $1 million in the lottery, or whenever something nice happens to us, we never ask God, to take it away from us. Isn't it interesting? We only ask God to take away the bad things that happen to us. We never ask Him to take away the good things that happen to us. That makes me think that people are really like little children. They do not take on responsibility for their own actions. Responsible for what am I doing, for what I am saying, and for what I am thinking. This is what we have to learn. We know it in the world. Children are not taken responsible for their actions because they don't know, they don't understand. So, in the terms of Dhamma, we are all children. Because we do not take the responsibility for our actions. So we have to learn. And this practice of Dhamma, or this Buddhist practice, is the way to learn to be responsible. So whatever happens to me right now is something that I must have brought up in the past. Now when we look at that, when we look in this way at our life, that only these things happen to us, what we have brought about. So where's all the complaint? It's not the fault of our parents, it's not the fault of our brothers and sisters, it's not the fault of the city, or the government, the state, or the race. or being a woman, or being a man. This is not the fault. The only fault lies within our wrong actions in the past. That's where the fault is. It doesn't lie in the government. It doesn't lie in the people. It doesn't lie in the social group. It just lies within us. And that's where we have to learn to take responsibility. And of course we don't like it because we are still children. And it's interesting, in this Buddhist country of Thailand, that is about 90 or 95% Buddhist, Christianity has its God. Because the Christianity, as we taught, learns just to love God and then we will come to heaven. You're not responsible for your actions because God has all brought it upon you. And to take on responsibility, as we know when we have been grown up and when we have learned in the world, to take responsibility for our actions in the world, it's tough. So to learn to take responsibility for our life is tough. We cannot blame anybody else than us. That's difficult. So we find an easier way out. So we go to one of these religions or to one of the teachers who tells us somebody else is responsible. And then we can go back and fall in the childhood again. But the Buddhist path or the Buddhist way of practice is learning to be responsible. It's learning to understand in the way of wisdom. It's learning to follow the symbols, not to take the symbols as a reality. If you go to Rome, for instance, if you go to Rome, or in the States, if you go to Washington, there are lots of different signs that point to Washington. Some signs might be beautiful, some signs might be plain, some signs are colored in green, or some in yellow, or some in white. If you take the sign for Washington or Rome itself, then you mistake it. It just points the way to where we have to go. So that's why a lot of people get confused when some people talk about Samadhi as this, or some people talk about Samadhi as that, or this, or that, or that. As long as they have not experienced Samadhi, they really do not know. They have not gone the way down. The moment you go down and experience Samadhi for yourself, you understand whatever the other person's words is using. It doesn't matter the word. It's the way how you describe this experience that makes it clear. And some people, it takes a little bit of adjustment. Some people talk in a very different language, very different words about the same experience. But if you had the experience before, then you will know what he's talking about. It's the same thing coming back to Rome and the signs to Rome. If you have read all the books about Rome and think we know Rome, and a person who has actually been to Rome will discover immediately that we have never ever gone to Rome. He knows that it's all read. It's all memorized. But two people, even if they have been to different parts of Rome, know they have been to Rome. So two people who have been in Samadhi know they have been in Samadhi. Two people who have known the entrance to the stream will know that they have a similar experience. If you can talk about it. So, what it all boils down, and let me summarize it. What it all boils down is coming back to the experience. What does it mean? What does it mean? Now I go back What does it mean in Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara and Vinyana? Whatever we think, what does it boil down? Is it Sankhara, is it Sanya, or is it Vijnana, or is it Vedana, or is it Rupa, or is it one of the six senses? What is it? Let's experience it again. And forget about all these symbols. The symbols have only one value: to communicate to another person what one has experienced or where one has problems with, or where one needs some help. But we made the language to another dimension, another world, another you. So let's go back down to reality. Let's make the first step to see things as they really are. Now today it was summarizing through the whole path of practice, taking up this and taking up that. In the beginning I was talking about the effort and determination that we had when we learned to walk. Remember that? Or when we learned to speak. If we put this determination and effort within our practice, we will surely, and there's no way that we cannot, reach the perfection of samadhi or the perfection of Dhamma. But of course, if we do it half-heartedly, our results will be half-hearted. If we do it quarter-heartedly, our results will be quarter-hearted. But if we do it full-heartedly, if nothing else interests then the way of practice, then the path of practice, that means when we do samadhi from the morning, we open our eyes till the night, we close it to remember Buddha or to keep on Buddha, then we will be able to do it. Just like a child, who is intent on learning to walk, will be able to learn. Even if it hits his head, so often, and how often, it's bleeding, it's there, it's crying, it's screaming. But it all forgets it once the tears are dried up. It starts again. But what do? We look for another teacher, or we look for another place, or we give it up completely. Because it's so difficult. Isn't it? So I want to give you this example of learning to walk and learning to speak as your ideal to learn the way of practice. To learn the way of samadhi and to learn the way of Dhamma, of wisdom. And that's where I am. So today it was a bit longer.
I got the first part that you spoke about 52.
Yes, they change. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long. It depends how the flow, it also depends about the environment. But don't ask me to repeat the same talk. I just don't know. And I just don't know. After an hour, if I don't put it in my memory what I was talking about, and after an hour, I forgot. And if somebody asks me, what did you talk about 2 days? I don't remember anything. It comes. If you want me to talk about this subject or that subject, yeah. But it might come out completely different. It depends on the situation. It depends on the people who listen. It depends on the skill to understand of you. depends on a lot of factors. What I want to talk about. Even if I have something in mind that I want to talk about the next time, when I sit here, I forget. Most of the time I even don't talk about it. Okay, questions? Otherwise we just stop. Okay, so then, good. So, put some effort. Put some effort in your practice. Well, you are the ones who benefit, not me. You do it not for me, you do it for yourself. For your own personal well-being, for your own personal in-depth understanding.